Welcome back to our Line Opinion panelists. Last year, Albuquerque saw 121 homicides. That's a record, and it's more than double the city's longstanding average of about 50 murders. Now, as you just saw, the mayor pointed out three main contributors in his view: drug addiction, domestic violence, and easy access to guns. Tom, let me start with you. Is that nexus of why so many people are being killed here, has the Keller administration done enough to address those root causes of those three things?
I think he entirely oversimplified the issue because Albuquerque's always had those issues.
True.
We're the West, so guns, drugs, and domestic violence are part and parcel, unfortunately, for the city. I think the other component that really has been the accelerant is that there's a lack of guardrails that sort of contain the impulsive violent behavior from out there because there's no presence of policing out there. There's no presence of authority. And without those guardrails, you know, the notion that I can do something and not get caught or at least face immediate consequences is removed. And the consequences that we're seeing is the absolute, you know, gross growth of homicide over the last 3 years.
Right. Is it your sense, we just had a big march at West Mesa High School last Saturday. There's been lots of calls that gun violence, people are just sick of it. Kids, teachers, administrators. Is there something building in Albuquerque in your view as an ex-police officer? You've been on the street, you've seen people suffer consequences of this. Have we turned a tide here in what we expect in our city?
I don't know. I don't know. I mean, guns, unfortunately, for better or for worse, are part of the culture here. And I'm not but certainly excusing negligent use of firearms or whatnot. But I think there is a degree of amplification where people have an avenue to express themselves and express objection to things in a way that they weren't able to do before, whether it's through social media or some sort of networking, so that you're seeing more of these mass demonstrations or protests or, you know, walkouts. So I think that's reflective of that. I don't know if we've turned the corner. I kind of maintain a rather cynical view that, for better or for worse, our country has the Second Amendment, which, you know, Australia and New Zealand don't have, and so that issue is sort of already gone unless they're going to go down the appeal of a constitutional review.
It's all connected, isn't it? It really is. Interesting there. Councilor Sender, the mayor's plan to turn downtown into a school-adjacent gun-free zone is probably going to raise some eyebrows, considering we had an unfortunate shooting just a few nights ago where a woman popped off a shot at a boyfriend or a husband and ended up hitting a vendor downtown. I'm curious how that struck you. You dealt with gun violence, of course, in your own district when you were representing. How's that hit you for downtown as an idea?
I mean, using downtown as a pilot project for this is interesting. However, I mean, throughout Albuquerque, we're all feeling the impacts of gun violence and crime. And so I think that, you know, having to see it at such a small population or a pilot program when so many of our communities are feeling this and feeling it in different ways because of where we live, I think, as he was saying, we have to address the root of the cause, and I don't know if that's specifically addressing the root of the cause.
Right. Is a family, a lot of folks who come on the show like to make the point that family structure is part of the problem. If you don't have family structure, there's going to be these issues with teenagers in the home. In your view, is that part of it as well?
I don't think so. I think more so about, you know, historical disinvestment into our communities as we experience both poverty issues and disinvestment, historical disinvestment, which I saw in my former council district and throughout Albuquerque, you know, when, especially through the pandemic, having exacerbated a lot of these issues and heightened the stressors on our communities when they're facing poverty. That's really thinking about the root of the issue is historical disinvestment and some of the barriers and inequities that these families have been facing to really truly address some of their needs. So being able to really truly meet the needs of our communities and uplifting them and addressing these inequities, we'll continue to see a lot of this you know, frustration, amplification of whether it's violence through domestic violence and some of these issues, or even sexual abuse. So I think that, you know, having to address some of those key issues first and thinking through that, that's really how we bring our families and communities together.
Serge, the mayor, quick to talk about overall decreases in violent and property crimes, but he did concede that this is a perception issue. If people don't feel safe, they're not safe. Does he have an avenue there? Can we actually feel safe in Albuquerque over the next 4 years?
I mean, everybody, I guess, has their own sense of what is, you know, what makes them feel safe, what makes them feel not safe. And I'm I understand, perception is reality often, but in this case, I think we should push back against that and really look at actual data, actual, what's going on and where it's happening. Because, there's a difference between actual feeling unsafe and pearl clutching that sometimes happens when we hear about things that happen in parts of the city that are nowhere near us, or things that are not, really going to affect our community, our demographic, in the way that it can be, amplified in media and whatnot. But obviously, feeling safe is an important thing, and we talk about downtown and revitalizing it in a way that I know a lot of people say they don't like going downtown because of X, Y, or Z reasons, and I'd like to see that changed. But I do think safety is, well, I don't want to discount the emotional feeling aspect of it, but there's also a reality that we can look at and talk about, and really that's what should be addressed, is the actual underlying data.
Interesting point there. Tom, got to talk about the ongoing DOJ mandated reform effort. Got to get there. Been 9 years. It's interesting to think about that, right? It's cost us over $10 million, as you know, for the monitoring team alone. How has Mayor Keller approached this process to you? A bit of a different tune here now that we're at this point, but a different tune maybe even a year or 2 years ago about this process. What's your take on it?
There was another pivot. He said in the interview that when he came in, his first approach was essentially satisfy Dr. Ginger's, check every box as needed and get that done. And then he ascertained that, well, that wasn't sufficient, because even though the scores were still going up in terms of compliance, for whatever reason, he didn't feel there was a sufficient progress. And so they tried this other, we'll take ownership of our actions policy, which I don't necessarily agree with, given I talk to officers and supervisors on almost a daily basis about what's really going on behind the scenes. And that's what I'm told is not consistent with what the mayor's representation was.
What's been the biggest gap that you're hearing, without naming any names certainly, but...
when it comes to actual sufficient process, when it comes to actual responding to crime, when it comes to actual training, it's like there's just been sort of this perception gap between what is actually happening and what DOJ is seeing. And I think as a consequence, if in fact DOJ does sort of withdraw, I think unfortunately the department is setting itself for a very, very difficult transition period, because it's going to be like taking a soda can that's sort of all shook up and under pressure, and DOJ withdraws and the cap comes off and it just fizzes out. Because with all the shootings that we had last year, I think that's reflective of what's happened with the training, which is the officers, either don't use any force or they instantly go to deadly force, and they don't do anything in between. And without that sort of pressure coming down from them with DOJ or the various units that enforce DOJ mandates, they won't have that scrutiny, and who knows what's going to happen, because we are dealing with an entirely different generation of officers out there now.
Oh, good last point there. Absolutely. And a reminder, guys, 18 officer shootings last year for people. It's a lot of folks. Unbelievable. Thanks again to our line panel. Really just a very interesting discussion. Be sure to let us know what you think about the State of the City address, or our panelists' reaction to it on our Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram pages. And catch any episode you might have missed on the PBS app, on your Roku or smart TV. Thanks again for joining us, for staying informed and engaged. We'll see you again next week in Focus, where the mayor made some news in part 2 of his conversation with our Lou DiVizio. Don't miss it.